Well, so they're setting up for daytime coming up. Kind of interesting. An historic election cocktail.
Oh!
Think George Washington. What would they drink back in the day?
I don't know.
All right.
Daytime starts right now.
And Election Day is tomorrow, in case you've been living under a rock. The always informative and entertaining celebrity historian Raffi Andonian will join us in studio to share what voting was like in the early days of our country. Drinking, debauchery, and all. Plus, how practices had changed across generations. So it looks like we're going to be finding out what they were eating and drinking around this time.
That's cool.
Way back in the early days of our country, Xavier.
Nice.
Little history lesson.
I like it.
The cool thing is Raffi makes history fun and entertaining.
I was just about to say that. The amount of entertainment value in a history lesson when he's here is next level.
I thought he was going to have on a powdered wig because we never know. Sometimes he comes in dressed like George Washington.
I know.
Other times he comes as himself. He's dressed as himself today.
Nice.
Speaking of voting, celebrity historian Raffi Andonian will join us live in studio to school us on the early days of voting, from the role alcohol and drinking played while campaigning to how voting practices have changed across generations. He always makes learning about our nation's history fun and entertaining, and we will talk to him in just a few minutes. He's already eating. Look at that. And in the meantime, an entertaining and always informative lesson on Election Day from fabulous celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. He is joining us live in studio. Well, my friends, Election Day is officially tomorrow. Have you ever imagined, though, what voting was like back in, say, George Washington days? Our next guest is about to paint a visual for all of us. Here to share more on the drinking and debauchery associated with voting in the early days of our country is celebrity historian Raffi Andonian. And we love when he's here because you teach us something really important, but you make it fun, Raffi, and I appreciate that.
That's right. So
and I like this tie.
Oh, yeah, of course. A hot pink. That's what I like. It pops like me.
Yes, yes. So what are we talking about today? Because obviously what everyone in the world is talking about is our election, which is happening tomorrow. But it was very different back in, say, George Washington's day.
It was. And here's what I want you to remember. Now, maybe some of you guys are going to have some drinks as you watch the election and on the election day. But in George Washington's day, they did the same thing. So I'll give you an example. George Washington, just before the election, for him, when he was a little kid, not a little kid, but a young man in his 20s, trying to join the Virginia legislature, before he's president, before there's even the United States, he served to 391 voters. It was a small, it's a rural country at that point, 160 gallons of liquor. So that's almost half a gallon of liquor per person, which he did because the prior election he lost, and he attributed it to not serving enough liquor, believe it or not.
Get them drunk.
I know, exactly.
That's what he was
now,
thinking.
James Madison, his colleague, his peer, who would later go on to write the Constitution, he didn't like that. He was like, this is a corrupting influence on voting, so maybe we can do some other thing. But you know what? When he tried to do a reform, guess what? It didn't work. He said, we can't change the culture. The culture is too deeply ingrained. So the way they saw this was not corruption, because you can't trade drinks for votes. You couldn't directly do that. What they would call it is treating. Treating like you're being hospitable. That means that you got to bring everyone in and allow all of them to enjoy the drinks. Not necessarily on election day, it might be days prior, but everyone is there, all parties.
Everyone's welcome.
Everyone's welcome. Yes, you're not dividing it up. So that means I'm just being hospitable, and as one of their colleagues once put it, to familiarize myself amongst the people. That's what they're doing. Now, it's not that different today in some ways. Now, you may not serve all this alcohol, and we may have one party in your particular group or something, but you hear all the time politicians come on TV and to other places and say, hey, I met with so-and-so, I met with so-and-so, and there's a story that they tell. They're showing that they're familiarizing themselves amongst the people, right? Well, some people call this drink then, when they're in the practice of doing so, swilling the planters with Bumbo. That's what they called it. Not happy about it necessarily. What does swilling mean? It means when you drink excessively, or when you rinse something down, like rinse a mug or something like that. So you're rinsing the planters, the voters, down with Bumbo. So let's rinse ourselves of some, okay?
Fantastic.
So this is made of, so what is the Bumbo actually made of? And let's make some ourselves. So I'm going to stir this up. What's in it is equal parts rum and a concoction that you're going to boil. So make it almost like a hot tea, but there's no tea leaves in this.
Okay.
So you're going to boil water with cinnamon in there.
And this is how they made it. This is how they made it.
You can make it at home. It's not that hard. So you would boil water with cinnamon, and then when you boil the water, don't grate it. You would boil that in the water. Now, when you boil that in the water for 30 minutes, you take that boiled water, you add some sugar in it to help it dissolve. And then when you mix it with the rum, this is what you have here. So what we're going to do is the last step, which is take the nutmeg and grate it into there, okay?
You know, guys, if you love history and you want to do something different on election night, maybe you could make some of this.
Exactly. So all you're doing is boiling the cinnamon with hot water, adding sugar to it, and then letting it cool off, putting it in with the rum, half and half, and then adding the nutmegs that I just grated. Just like that. That's all you do. So now, let's put some in here, and you can try some.
And obviously, they didn't have ice back then. See, that would have been a real problem for me, Raffi.
Good point. This is going to be room temperature.
I prefer ice.
Now, it's a rum-based drink because they love sugar back then. You notice they add sugar as well. Sugar is a very rich expensive thing back then, so it's something that really shows off status.
Okay. And I feel like these are kind of some older drinking glasses as well.
Yeah.
Where did you find these? At a museum?
No.
He's like,
I got these as a gift. I got them as a gift. I don't even know. So, cheers. So, taste that. Oh. It's strong, right?
It's so very strong.
Now, this is the ginger cookies that you might have with it. This was common in colonial period.
Okay.
So this goes well with it. If you have a bite with it,
don't mind if
you'll see if it goes, help wash it down.
Are you going to make me drink this again?
If you want. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Now, as we do this, I want you to think about the voting practices. We're used to showing up to a poll.
Raffi, it's like battery acid. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's really strong.
Wow.
So when you would show up to the poll, all right, you would go to, you don't have a paper ballot like you do today. It's just before we entered the United States in the late part of the British Empire and Virginia. George Washington's coming up in this politically. Okay? Now you show up to the courthouse and you're going to deliver your vote. And let's say it's me and Xavier.
Okay.
Now I gave you this rum, so you better vote the right way.
Oh, I'm looking at you.
Stand up and tell me your vote. Orally tell me.
I have to say it?
Tell me your vote.
Oh,
Tell me I vote for. Who are you going to vote for? Tell me.
I vote for Xavier.
Oh, you can't do that. I gotta give you more rum. I gotta give more. Well, let's say you said it was Raffi, okay?
Raffi, I vote for you, Raffi.
Here's what I would do. This is really how they would do it. Well, thank you, Miss Kimberly. Thank you for your vote. And then you would sit back down.
So awkward.
This is how they did it. The vote. So I know how you vote. So I'm paying attention to what's going on. Now, that changes. A couple generations later, in the middle 19th century, that practice is not going to be verbal anymore. It's going to be on paper. But you know who printed the ballots? It was parties and newspapers that would print the ballots, not the state. And they would come up as party tickets. That's what they were known as. That's where we get the term party ticket. It would be a particular party. It would have all the party's candidates. You go to the ballot box and you just stuff it in.
So you just pick a party.
You just pick a party and you put it in from your local newspaper or like I said, from the party itself. Now, what's crazy about that was really fascinating is this practice kind of evolves over time. So when you have that ticket, you show up and there's going to be people that are going to be outside of the polling place offering you, not necessarily the candidate, but people offering you, not Bumbo anymore, but now whiskey. They're going to offer you shots of whiskey. They're going to say, hey, maybe you want shoes for your kid. Or your cousin needs a job because he just came into the neighborhood.
Seems illegal.
So they're going to be more directly bribing for the votes. And you would get up, you know where they're voting? In voting places like saloons, stables, believe it or not, homes, courthouses. But when you go up to vote, it's still actually not a secret ballot. You would actually walk through that crowd, having taken some shots, stand up on a platform, and on the platform you look out to the crowd. You look out to the crowd who's going to start cheering, and you're going to take your ballot and you're going to stuff it into the ballot box.
It's like a party.
And you have to have courage to stand up and do that, because if you didn't have that courage, they would say, you don't deserve to vote. You need to prove your strength and independence to participate in the citizenry to protect the republic, believe it or not.
That was very dramatic, Raffi.
Now, that was a couple generations after George Washington, so things change over time. But stuff like that is why by the late 19th and early 20th century, why you had the temperance movement to get rid of alcohol, eventually culminates with prohibition. There's the kind of stuff that they're seeing. So those are some of the reforms that we've seen since then, and including the secret ballot where nobody knows how you vote. That's part of the reason, too.
See, I like how we do it now. now. We drink at home and we vote in secret. So much easier that way, Raffi. It truly is. Thank you for being here. This was so fun.
Swilling the Planters.
This is terrible, but what we talked about was fantastic.
They can try it at home and see for themselves.
Maybe. The cookies were delicious, too. Raffi, you're the best. Thank you for being here today. If you would like more info on Raffi, you can go to celebrityhistorian.com. You can also find him on Instagram at celebrity_historian. He truly is the best at what he does. And we will be right back after a short break. I'm going to have some cookie. I will not have some more